Taipei Tzu Chi Hospital is now overseeing a hotel that will serve as a quarantine center for COVID-positive patients. In Sri Lanka, Tzu Chi came to the aid of a family who had no income and no housing due to the pandemic. I'm Sean Scanlon. This is DAI Headlines. Let's get started. In Taiwan, the outbreak of the pandemic continues unabated. The past few days, one of the most difficult problems encountered in combating the epidemic is the lack of proper medical facilities. Therefore, the government has requisitioned a number of local hotels to serve as special quarantine hotels for confirmed COVID-positive patients. This has helped alleviate conditions at hospitals for those who have tested positive or have mild symptoms, or even those that are asymptomatic. Taipei Tzu Chi Hospital has begun to take charge of these hotels. It is expected to be officially open very soon. While medical manpower is tight, the hospital calls on medical staff who can get away to serve at this pandemic prevention hotel. Here's more. My situation is that I still feel tired physically. I have to rest, and I suddenly feel weak.
All 5 members of Mr. R's family have confirmed COVID, but the hospital's capacity for treatments is not good. He, his wife, and children are temporarily isolated at home because he was uncomfortable and almost out of breath. Mr. R rushed to emergency room, but he did not expect it to lie in an outdoor bed waiting for treatment.
When I went to see the doctor, the nearby hospitals were unable to see me. I went to a hospital in another district to see the doctor. There are mosquitoes outdoors and mosquitoes fly around over there. It is not so good for sanitary conditions. However, I don't blame the hospital as for handling it this way because of the limited medical resources.
In the face of this situation, public units recruit hotels and transform them into anti-pandemic hotels to house mild or asymptomatic patients.
你好，我这边是中央护理站。
Hello, this is the Central Nursing Station. Are you uncomfortable? Wait for us to see you. Don't be nervous.
Taipei Tzu Chi Hospital assists the new Taipei city government in entering the upgrade quarantine hotels. After various anti-pandemic materials are in place, the hospital will actually practice standard operating procedures before it is officially put into use.
After the confirmed patient arrives at the designated quarantine hotels, the first checkpoint will be the driveway to the inspection station. After the confirmed patient has been examined, he will enter the exclusive passage and be stationed in the room. The so-called medical process will be initiated immediately.
Wu Qiufeng, the director of the nursing department, had participated in SARS epidemic and was particularly impressed by the doubling of the workload of medical staff in the face of the outbreak of COVID.
As a caregiver, when we are preparing for such an environment, the most important thing is to have 2 directions. The first direction is the safety of the staff, and the second direction is the safety and mission of patients. So during our preparation process in the past few days, our focus has been on these 2 directions.
I think everyone is psychologically and professionally prepared. Therefore, when we opened a ward to accept patients, and even when we took over the task of quarantine hotels for confirmed positive patients, everyone thought it was our duty. So mobilizing all the medical staff, there's no difficulty at all. We are all in the pandemic together, so I think this is what we should do.
The enhanced version of the quarantine hotel is a level of medical institution. It will arrange for medical staff to rotate around the clock, and Taipei Tzu Chi Hospital will issue recruitment order. In addition to medical care, Tzu Chi volunteers are also involved in preparation. Place gifts in each room and post Jin's algorithm in place to provide positive energy. The military and police also dispatched manpower to quarantine hotels to support pandemic prevention duties. Pandemic prevention is urgent. Thank you for fighting the battle and carrying the burden together.
This wave of COVID has hit Taiwan unexpectedly. Many confirmed cases have been categorized as backlog. This raises the question of why there is such a backlog in the testing and reporting system. Today, we investigate the process of submitting testing results and learn more from the laboratory director at Taipei Tzu Chi Hospital. Take a look.
Every day, he's either in the laboratory or on his way to the laboratory. Outside the hospital, people are anxious to get the results of their tests, while inside the hospital, lab technicians are under pressure to submit the results.
This is the difficult part for our lab technicians. We need to receive confirmation from the CDC before we can submit our results to the website, so we're waiting as well. The work isn't done when our testing is complete.
Dr. Lin Zhipei is a clinical pathologist and the director of the laboratory at Taipei Tzu Chi Hospital. This molecular biology lab is now 10 times busier than before the recent wave of coronavirus outbreak, as researchers don't only have to run the tests, but also need to report their findings to the authorities.
Nearly all of us are working overtime. I've checked the records in the past 10 days.
这10天里面呢，有3天我们超过
3 of those days we have worked past midnight.
超过都完成了，有5天是小夜班有
5 of the days they work past 9 p.m.
都有上班的。
Testing is time-consuming as the specimen must first be deactivated, which means to break down the virus's shell, so it dies and loses the ability to spread and infect. This process alone takes 45 minutes.
First step is to deactivate the specimen, which takes about 40 to 45 minutes. Then we go to step 2, which is to extract the nucleic acid, and that takes an hour and a half.
When the extraction is complete, the next step is to conduct a reading of the results. When the results are negative, the job is not over, as they must test one more time to confirm the finding. Then they can finally submit their finding to the authorities.
The CDC rules that when findings are negative, they have to confirm a negative finding before we can submit it to the website. Only when they find it negative can we post our results.
This double-checking system means reports are not done quickly.
那这样加起来有5个钟
In total, it takes about 5 hours and 50 minutes, nearly 6 hours. This is why we can only submit one report in half a day.
Another problem that a user from a social media group thread pointed out is that the CDC website to submit the findings is often jammed due to the server being overloaded. One report can take up to an hour to upload. As of now, the CDC website has improved the uploading problem, but Dr. Lin feels the lab needs more equipment to increase speed.
We haven't been able to overcome our time needed because our extraction equipment can only work on 24 specimens in an hour and a half, so we're limited in what we can do.
As the virus continues to spread rapidly, perhaps humans need to act quicker than the virus itself. These unsung heroes are dedicated to their job and doing their part to fight this pandemic.
The Ministry of Education officially announced a suspension of classes across the country will be extended to mid-June. Taiwanese students will continue to use remote teaching during this time. As online learning has become a trend, Tzu Chi and Pagamo collaborated for the first time to promote such education based on a total of 9 themes. This allows school children to learn about epidemic prevention, environmental protection, and disaster prevention. The following is about which of the mask-wearing method is incorrect. The question is multiple choice. A. Pagamo professor Ye Bingcheng developed this set of online esports learning games so that students can learn from entertainment and playing games. This is a very good trend. So for environmental education and disaster prevention education, these 2 areas where we have put so much effort in, if we incorporate online games into our teaching, more students can learn these topics together. Currently, we have 9 major themes focusing on environmental education and disaster prevention education-related areas, including marine pollution, climate change, circular economy, etc. There will be a new theme every month, so when these 1.4 million registered school children study the respective theme, they will receive tasks to learn about disaster prevention and environmental education.
Tzu Chi plays a very important role internationally, and we also see that Tzu Chi has helped a lot of people all over the world. This is something I think is very commendable. From a certain perspective, I think Tzu Chi is the pride of Taiwan. Like when we are doing education technology, how can 1 + 1 be greater than 2? This time, Tzu Chi partners with us to plan together, so that children all around the world can learn these things with us. This is to extend beyond Taiwan to help children from many other countries.
This topic combines current events, which are environmental protection and water resources, as well as the current COVID-19 pandemic. From the questions, we can understand how to cherish water resources and protect ourselves from the pandemic.
We can get to know more new information and knowledge about water resources in Taiwan and epidemic prevention while playing games.
The children of this generation are actually facing very big challenges. So how to make them realize this matter at a younger age? I think it is very important. If there is no such awareness of the problems in the world they are facing, then they need all of us working together to help them. It's actually very difficult to make a substantial change in the world.
Especially last year, through the use of mobile environmental education vehicle, we have practically combined education and entertainment together. This year, the Pagamo platform we promoted is an online educational and entertainment learning game. All Tzu Chi volunteers were mobilized to promote this project. To make all of us clearly understand to overcome this challenge, we have held many online education training, briefings, as well as physical operations in many districts and countries.
Students at all levels across the country, including from public and private kindergartens, stopped attending classes at schools.
Some adjustments have been made to our teaching. If the students belong to a relatively high-risk group, we would encourage them to adopt distance teaching.
If the student stays in school, he doesn't stop learning. We still have to conduct online teaching. We have prepared 400 laptops and iPads for students to borrow.
COVID-19 主要致死的病患都是因为下呼吸道的感染。
I have made a PowerPoint with pictures of working healthcare workers or the pictures of the marks on their face to let the children know that while we are attending online classes safely at home or in a dormitory, there are actually many people exposed to risks out there.
In the current pandemic, and even in the future, in the post-pandemic era, online learning has become a very powerful trend. Tzu Chi has just caught up with this wave of online education. We promote environmental education or disaster prevention knowledge through the internet, which is also an active learning process. In such a direction, I think it will achieve a greater effect. The pandemic has caused many people to lose their jobs, and some have nowhere to stay because they can't pay the rent. One such family in Sri Lanka has been left homeless without any income. After learning about this, Tzu Chi volunteers were immediately mobilized to assist in the construction of a house. Here's more.
Measuring the area of the construction site and getting suitable building materials prepared, volunteers from Hambantota in Sri Lanka were mobilized to help build a home for the Hansika family.
She used to work at the Tzu Chi Hambantota liaison office for 8 years. She is like our Dharma family members. Later, she quit her job due to family issues. Her family has been staying in a rented apartment. But after the pandemic outbreak, she can't pay the rent anymore. We have to help her. At least we can't let her family be homeless.
As Tzu Chi volunteers said, after the pandemic, like the Hansika family, many people have nowhere to live because they can't pay the rent. Fortunately, the Hansika family has a small land for building in their hometown. After buying building materials, volunteers immediately started the construction.
I'm very grateful to the Tzu Chi brothers and sisters in Hampantota for helping me build a house. My financial situation is really bad. Tzu Chi volunteers have helped me a lot. Many of them even came a long way to get here. If there is a chance in the future, I would also like to reciprocate their love.
Volunteers rushed to work day and night to complete the construction in 8 days as planned, so that Hansika's family could have a place to stay.
Tzu Chi is involved in 66 countries and regions around the world. Everyone is like a seed taking root in the soil. Indonesia has many islands, many ethnic groups, and many poor people, and many natural disasters. Fortunately, there are also many caring people. Since the Jakarta flood in 2002, Tzu Chi has been active in disaster relief, including building a Great Love Village and constructing many schools. Here's more.
Many people do Tzu Chi work. I'm not doing it alone. It's actually a team.
At that time, my father was very worried that almost 60% of Jakarta was flooded. Brother Si Xian said the flood would be a big problem and asked if we should consult Master Deng Yen. My father said, okay, let's go.
It's all taught by the master. When I was building a Great Love Village, I participated in Tzu Chi for the first time. She knows clearly what people want, and this is to live in a safe place. It starts with this need of safety, and then there are other factors to consider, such as stable work, and then parents being able to send their children to safely study. These are the three conditions, and then she said forcefully, I want you to build a model village.
第四呢，他说我要你做一个模范村。雅琪发生灾难的时候，张人就第一句话，你知道。
When the disaster happened in Aceh, the master's first words were, "Do you know that all the crops are there?" The crops of the children were littered all along the way. There are many who are just 1 year old and 2 years old. We investigated and learned they needed tents and other things. And then at the meeting, we raised funds to give supplies to Indonesia. And we kept discussing how to provide relief. In fact, we have been doing it all this time.
I am very grateful for the assistance provided by the Poverty Alleviation Project. Thank you, Tzu Chi, for helping me. I am really happy because I used to rent a house and now I have my own home.
Alhamdulillah kali, senang kali saya.
Ingat waktu nyebrang, tapi
I remember that it was very hard when I crossed the river. Since there are bridges in the village, we can go to school like other children without being hindered by the river.
根据统计呢，就是一年有1200万到1400万人口。
According to statistics, there are 12 to 14 million people in Indonesia who may be worried about food insecurity, and there are 30 to 40 million rich people. If two relatively rich people can help one person, it would be a big deal, as it would mean that there are no more poor people.
就不得了了，这个等于说就没有贫穷的人了。
Yang lebih terasa itu ya di dunia pertanian. Itu yang lebih terasa.
The most impressive thing for me is that in the farming area, they provided experts which assist us and taught us all how to become a successful farmer.
mendampingi bagaimana menjadi petani yang berhasil.
I believe that humans are like our fingers. They're both long ones and short ones. If we feel there's more strength in one finger, we should develop its potential.
Saya ingin menjadi bidan. Saya ingin membantu saudara-saudara saya yang berada di pelosok.
Nama saya Susuaning, asal saya dari Papua. Cita-cita saya ingin menjadi kepala dinas pertanian.
Cita-cita saya menjadi pendeta supaya saya bisa berdoa orang.
海运是来不及的，尤其是呼吸机，还有测试剂，还有医疗用品、口罩等等。
Shipping by sea would be too late, especially for ventilators, test kits, medical supplies, masks, and protective clothing. Indonesia was short of everything at that time, and civilian aircraft were grounded, so we must pay for chartered flights which were very expensive. We really need to thank Brother Sugianto, Brother Frankie, and our brother Lin Fengsen, and many Indonesian businessmen who trust and support Tzu Chi. That's why we can purchase such a large amount of material for the pandemic.
Tzu Chi doesn't say you can't do it alone. You have all these volunteers and everyone has his strengths and weaknesses. So when I do Tzu Chi, I have only one requirement for volunteering, as long as his starting point or intention is correct.
我们的心要很开阔，可以包容天下，这叫心包太虚。量浊沙界，我们的心量要普及，这是世间一切。有沙尘的地方这应该要有慈济人的足迹。
怎么去To purify people's hearts, Tzu Chi has deep roots. Indonesia is too large and too many people, but we can also bring more people to join, and this is an act of kindness.
其实一个是善的共鸣啦。
A Japanese restaurant in Taichung encouraged people on the internet to support frontline medical staff. This resulted in 50 vegetarian lunches delivered to medical staff at Taichung Tzu Chi Hospital. As the pandemic intensifies, many people responded with great love and compassion for the hardworking medical staff at the front lines of this battle. We leave you with these images. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.